I love this perspective. This looks like an album cover.
It reminds me of that guy who chases rare trains
Yes.
and always has the camera like a GoPro mounted to his head while also filming his reaction.
Yeah.
Does he live on a tiny world?
No, but he's got a giant head from the viewpoint that he films.
Fair.
Don't we all live in a tiny world?
This is the Angry Birds Bird Minute, sponsored by Angry Birds for their 15th anniversary, where we tell you all about a cool bird that may or may not be angry. This week's bird is the secretary bird. The secretary bird is a relative of hawks and eagles, but it is in a family all of its own. Standing up to 4 feet tall, this striking bird is mostly light gray with black feathers on its tail and the upper parts of its legs. Orange face skin and a spray of black feathers protruding from the back of their head gives this bird a one-of-a-kind glam look. Found primarily in grasslands and savannas in sub-Saharan Africa, it is unique in that it is the only bird of prey to hunt on foot. By stomping on the ground, they flush prey such as snakes, lizards, small mammals, insects, and birds before delivering a killing blow with the sharp talons on their feet. But are they angry? On a scale of 1 to angry, with looks like these, we can't rate the secretary bird anything other than fierce.
This is Wild Green Streams. I'm Rhett.
I'm Curtis.
I'm Io.
And for today's Eclipse extravaganza, we're all going to watch and listen to videos, pictures, and recordings that the three of us made during the solar eclipse earlier this month and react to it in real time while we're watching. You can listen to this on the listening platforms and that'll work just fine. But if you want to go to our Facebook group, Wild Green Memes, we will have the video that goes with this up as well there and pinned to the top so you can watch along and see what we're seeing. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1.
Greetings from Good Harbor Beach in Massachusetts. I am a few hours from the path of totality, but still expected to get some level of coverage in the 80 to 90 percentile.
It's pretty
good. I'm excited to see what I've only heard described as a very weird sunset. And while there's not going to be a hole in the sky, maybe I'll get some confused gull activity and still see some cool stuff. It is high tide, with it being a full moon and all. There is a beautiful creek known for housing striped bass and all sorts of small schooling fish and crabs and seabirds, and it is really kicked up right now with the tide going out. So I think we're just about ending high tide. Beautiful sight, big sandy beach with lots of crab shells and algae and big beautiful rocky island that you can actually walk to when the tide is low, and it is just crawling with hermit crabs around its edge. So yeah, whether or not I get to see the sky to go dark or just some really bizarre cosmological phenomena, I am here enjoying a nice cloudless day on the beach. I don't know what's better, a cloudy path of totality or a cloudless 90-something% coverage. You guys will have to let me know.
I feel like a cloudless 90% coverage would be way better, if nothing else, just because a cloud blocking totality would feel so soul-crushingly like you missed it, whereas otherwise it's like a cool thing that happened on a day when you were outside.
Well, the thing is, I tempted fate and got cloud coverage at its darkest point. So I'm like, is it dark because of clouds or is it dark because of moon? Also, I'd like to go on record of saying, what was I saying when I was like, it's a full moon, of course, because of the eclipse, as if a crescent moon would show up differently when blocking the sun.
It was a new moon as well, so it was the complete opposite of a full moon.
I was I was
You
all
were
sorts
overcome with just joy and
Yeah.
ecstasy from the eclipse that
I was going
lost
like,
all words.
it's like how they say the full moon makes people act strange. The new moon made me think there was a full moon, therefore act strange.
I feel like
Yeah.
those are easy words to mix up. Just so that, in case anyone doesn't know, you actually can't have a solar eclipse without it being a new moon, because the moon is in between the Earth and the sun, which means that the sun is not shining any light at the side of the moon that we can see, so it's a new moon.
It's about 10 minutes before totality, and it has gotten a lot dimmer outside. Like, it feels like I'm wearing sunglasses when I'm not wearing sunglasses. Like, everything is just dim, and it's gotten much, much cooler. Like, as if there was a breeze, but there's no breeze. And about 10 minutes will be second contact, and then totality.
So where were you, Io?
I was in Ferncliff State Park, which is in southern Illinois. I wasn't exactly sure where I was going to be going until the night before. I had driven up to Paris, Tennessee from Georgia and stayed in a hotel there. And then that night in the hotel room was like the Pepe Silva meme where I had like 8 tabs open, 3 different apps, like looking at the like different weather forecasts of like trying to figure out where would be the exact location that would be best. And one of the biggest city in southern Illinois in the path was in Carbondale, but I'm like, everyone is going to be going to Carbondale, and I don't want to go there. And I was looking at the map and where there was going to be the percent chance of cloud cover, and there was one spot where I was like, okay, look at this weather map, go onto Google and see if I can find an area. And I was hoping for a natural area so I could observe some of the natural phenomenon. And somewhere that, like, could I have watched this in a parking lot? Sure, but, like, I didn't want to. But also somewhere that was, like, relatively closest to a road for a hopefully quick exit, which I later found out was not in the cards. And there was this perfect little spot of green, and I zoomed in, and I was like, what is that? Oh, it's a little state park, and they had a lake there, which, you know, had grass around it. I was like, oh, this will be perfect. Like, there won't be any trees or anything in the way. And I got there, woke up early in the morning, and I drove, like, the last 2 hours. I mean, it was super, super foggy when I got there. Very thick, dense fog. But I set up, and I was there pretty early. There were a few people there before me, but I was able to get a good parking spot and also sitting spot around the lake. And I was like, well, we got like 4 hours for this fog to burn off. I'm just going to trust the weather forecast. And sure enough, it did. And it was, I mean, perfect weather. No clouds. I mean, a couple of very, very high, thin cirrus clouds, but those had scooted out of the way by the time the eclipse was happening. And so just got a fantastic view of it. And it was truly the coolest thing I've ever seen. And now, have I dedicated my entire life to the sun as if I was an ancient Egyptian? Maybe, but also I think it's deserved. So people who saw the eclipse, you can weigh in on whether or not you think we should bring back worshiping the sun, because I think they were onto something.
I don't know, it's kind of the opposite, because you're, if anything, you're going to extreme lengths to avoid the sun.
True, maybe we should be worshiping the moon instead.
Right, for blocking the sun.
Yeah. Anti-sun, pro-moon.
Showing the ancient Egyptians who's boss.
Maybe.
Look up the myth of Apep at some point if you haven't. It's I believe it's an eclipse myth about a serpent devouring the sun. It's an ancient Egyptian myth.
I think Apep was one of the moons that I didn't pick for our game today.
Ooh, we'll find out more.
Do you have the slides idea how little that narrows it down?
There's like 200 something moons in the solar system. But out of those moons, we decided to play this waiting game while
Here we are, 4 minutes out.
watching the eclipse slowly happen over the course of this video. And that game is, we each brought 3 moons today from any body in the solar system. The Earth's moon is the only one that creates eclipses anything like what we're seeing here. But the solar system itself has over 200 moons in it, between all the different planets and dwarf planets and even asteroids that sometimes have moons. So each of us have brought 3 moons. One of them is a moon which has a name which would be great for a human to have. One of them has a name which would be bad for a human to have, and one of them has a name that would be so bad that it's good for a human to have.
And the number one moon name obviously Io. So that's just like,
Kind of how we came up with the idea for the game. It's
so
just
we've
like-
set aside Io as a contestant because it's obviously first place as the best name for a person if you're naming them after a moon. And so we're basically competing for, or comparing notes for the runners-up, if you will.
Right. Yes, this is a race to second because Io is clearly the winner. There would just be no podcast if we were going to make an honest comparison of who's the best.
Exactly.
I mean, Io is also a moth, so you just got it all.
And really, I don't know if irony is the right word of this. Also, the sort of irony of this game is that a lot of these moons were named after people originally. So we've sort of come full circle. Most of the names come from Greek mythology. Some of them, the newer moons, like for some of the Saturn's moons, come from Norse mythology. So they're mostly people names. So people have become moons, and now we're going back to people again. I think a good name
2 minutes out.
for I made a couple because I wasn't sure how many we needed. I really like the name Phoebe as a name, not just because I'm a big fan of Phoebe Bridgers, but I just think that that's a fun word to say, and so I think that is my next best moon name choice.
Solid.
Also a bird.
Exactly.
Right, okay, so my best one is Miranda, which partly because I just think it's funny that such a normal human name is a moon name, so it's almost kind of cheating. But the other thing about it is that the moon Miranda is just genuinely one of the craziest worlds of any kind in our solar system. It has cliffs that are 3 miles tall.
Damn.
3 miles tall. The whole thing is mostly made out of ice, and it's incomprehensible. There's nothing on Earth, anything like that. And if you look at a picture of this thing, it looks weird. It looks like, you know those really old movies where like the moon has like a rocket sticking out of its eye and stuff?
Yeah.
That's what this moon actually looks like. Like, it is lopsided, it is jagged, it's like a crumpled up piece of paper that someone threw out into space.
Cool. Just the whole thing.
Oh, I just looked it up. It is. It's a moon of Uranus.
Right.
Oh, hat. Oh, she's fun. I like her.
So that's my pick for number 1, partly because I think it's just a cool moon.
Yeah.
I chose just badass sounding, not like logical in terms of.
Wow.
The eclipse is happening.
Okay, it's time.
Wow is right, Rhett.
Right now.
Right now. So, Curtis, where you were, was there a lot of wind?
Yes. How could you tell?
Well, the wind picked up right as it went into totality for us, which was interesting.
There goes.
These are some like
photos.
amazing eclipse photos that Io got.
The photos that I took of the partial phases were so like I didn't troubleshoot enough with the lens over the camera and like the settings and everything, so they all came out kind of blurry. But for totality, taking the lens off, I got some pictures that were really cool, and I was like, hell yeah.
I love the solar flares that you got around the edges of it.
That was really cool, and like you could see them. What I also did is I had a bunch of extra pairs of eclipse glasses, and I taped a pair of eclipse glasses onto the front of some binoculars that I had, so I was able to like look at it through the binoculars, and like you could see them just like with like binoculars I have are not that powerful, and like visibly like little red dots, and people were like, whoa, what is that? And then afterwards everyone was like, oh, those are solar flares, which apparently don't happen all the time. It's as in to coincide with the eclipse and everything. And so I was like, if I get one clear photo of any part of the eclipse, I'll be happy. And I got quite a few good ones of totality, and I was like, this is everything I've ever wanted.
Yeah, these are beautiful pictures.
Yeah. And it's so, with the 360 video now, it's crazy how dark it gets, because all of a sudden it just changes. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's basically nighttime. You know, a thought that I had when it was still, you could still see color everywhere. It was still pretty bright, but the sun was like 30% covered. You still couldn't look at it, obviously. Was that I was in Muncie, Indiana, which is flat as a sheet of paper on a table. And the reason for that is that it was covered in like a mile of ice back in the Ice Age, with just a marginal decrease in its angle, marginal change in its angle that the Earth was at. And it got me thinking that if the sun had just been eclipsed just that much, which isn't even noticeable in a moment, for it to get covered up, but if it stayed that way, we would be in like the deepest ice age ever, and all this entire grassy green place all around me would have just been covered in probably a mile deep in ice.
Shout out to the sun for giving us life.
Thank you, the sun.
So I went a different route, and not like the logical name, but like just sounding badass name. And I went with Hyperion.
Oh, dope.
Just because it sounded cool, and I know it's like a sci-fi book. I don't know what it's about. It just had a cool looking knight on the cover, and it's got Io in it, so win. It's
almost cheating.
It's the 8th largest moon of Saturn with a very irregular shape. It looks more like you'd think of like your typical asteroid, and described as having a sponge-like appearance. And it's named after the Cronus, which is the Roman, or the Greek equivalent of Saturn. It's named after his older brother Hyperion, who was a Titan and the god of watchfulness and observation, which just sounds like cool eclipse themed thing. And yeah, if somebody was just like, yeah, my name's Hyperion, I'd be like, that's cool as hell.
That would be cool as hell. So, something that just happened in the video is that the eclipse ended and everyone started cheering, which was funny to me. I also cheered, but it made me laugh because I thought everyone cheered when the sun came back, like as though as though we didn't know it was gonna happen or something. I don't know. It was just interesting. I think we were all just really hyped.
That's primal instinct kicking in. That's like, oh, the world did not end. The sky has not been darkened for eternity. The dragons or snakes of old did not devour the sun. So the answer to the question, is it cooler to see a solar eclipse in the path of totality with cloud coverage, or just outside the path of totality without cloud coverage? I'm not sure, because I'm out of the path of totality with cloud coverage. That was really cool with eclipse glasses, but honestly, if I didn't know there was a solar eclipse going on in this area, I would have thought nothing of it. So hell yeah to you guys, and I will try and see the next US one in 20 years, or now that I'm seeing all this insane footage of just how cool it is, maybe I'll go abroad. Yay space.
Something Hank Green said about it, and he was quoting something that I also said. So a lot of people say, wow, that would have really freaked me out if I didn't know what it was. Or, I bet people back in the past were really freaked out by this. And Hank Green's observation was that when people say that, it probably means that somewhere deep inside them, what they're really saying is, I'm really freaked out right now.
Yeah. And also, like, plenty of ancient civilizations were really fucking good at astronomy. Yeah. Like, the Mayans had incredible astronomy. I believe they had like base 60 counting, because it like helped with like their math. We can fact check that. Maybe that's not real. But
they had some other than base 10 math system. Yeah.
Yeah. But even still, I'm like, oh yeah. Like if I didn't know what was happening, I would be like, the world is ending. Yeah. Because that's what I saw. It was a graph of, I think it was an X-Kid comic that was about like coolness of an eclipse versus like where you are in totality. Oh, and the caption that they put was like, a partial solar eclipse is like a really cool sunset, but a total solar eclipse is like the sky broke. And
I was literally just
exactly what it was like.
That's so true.
I did just want to share a very funny bad moon name for a human.
What's your bad moon name?
my bad moon name for a human is S/2009 S1.
That's my bad moon name too.
No way.
Yeah. except mine was S/2003 J2. They're like neighbors.
Amazing. So the newer ones that are discovered, they get like a number, and because sometimes they're so small they don't get names. So S means satellite, the / whatever year it was discovered, and then S1 means Saturn 1. So it was the first moon of Saturn discovered in 2009. So yours would be J2, the second moon of Jupiter that they discovered in 2003. And S/2009 S1 is the smallest moon in the solar system, apparently. It's only like 0.3 of a kilometer.
Whoa.
And orbits Saturn. And I was like, that would be a hilarious, terrible child's name.
I have two contenders for terrible but also sort of great moon names for people.
What are they?
The first one is Hippocamp, which is named after the mythological sea-horse, not to be confused with real seahorses, but rather this mythological half
Cool
horse thing. But Hippocamp just sounds like, a camp for hippos.
It does.
Or a hippocampus, if you will.
They'll never forget.
So yeah, that'd be a weird name. The other one that I really liked was, I think I have the pronunciation right, Mane.
Oh, I saw that one.
Is one of the muses, but is one letter away from just saying meme.
Yeah.
remove the N, and you just have meme.
Yeah.
Which is like
the ultimate muse.
So yeah, good point. We're breaking this down to its bare essentials, that the muses have been influencing us from ancient times to modern day meme making.
So my bad moon name was, we've already talked about it. It was S/2003 J2, and I feel like Io has covered the reason why this moon has been given this terrible name. It used to be kind of like its own kind of extra cool moon because it was thought to be the furthest out of Jupiter's moons, but then they found another one further out, so it doesn't matter.
No one cares anymore.
It got demoted. No one even noticed when it got demoted. It's not even like Pluto. Demoonted, you're right. Well, it's still a moon, but it's just not as cool a moon. And then my so bad it's good name is Rhea, which I like because it's also a bird related to ostriches and emus and other giant flightless birds.
Somebody needs to do a Venn diagram of all the birds that are also moons.
Yeah.
Because we have two.
Rhea was on my backup names of good moon names because I was like, that's a cool name.
It's true.
My bad / so bad it's good moon name for a person, Gerd. GERD. Just Gerd.
Gerd.
Like acid reflux, the moon.
It's so bad it's Gerd.
Yeah. Hey, I love it.
Irma Gerd.
I'm like, that's like an old man name. Like, you're born 80 years old and your name is Gerd. Like, there's no 7-year-old Gerds. You're only 80 plus.
Where'd the name come from?
You know, the crazy thing is that, you know that painting American Gothic where it's like the old lady and the old guy with the pitchfork?
Mm-hmm.
The man's name is Gerd, but that's not the crazy thing. The crazy thing is that the woman's name also Gerd.
Yo. I'm looking up the origin. It was named after a Jotun from Norse mythology. Yeah.
Norse Gerd.
Yeah. She's married to Freyr and is the personification of fertile soil. Wow, it was named in 2022. That was really recently.
Oh, crazy.
Wow.
And that's the best they could come up with. I like how one of the planets, I want to say Neptune, is all Shakespeare characters.
They named them all after Shakespeare.
No, it's Uranus. Yeah.
You know what the worst part and / best part about Neptune, the so bad it's good story about Neptune, is that the guy who discovered it was British. It was the last major planet discovered, and the guy who discovered it, he did it with math. He figured out where it was because Uranus was in like the wrong place than you would expect it to be without another planet behind it. So he was like, I bet if I look here, I'll find a planet. And he did. And he wanted to name it. He was a British dude in the early 1800s. And he tried to name this planet George. Like King George.
I think I remember that. Like, not because I was
God.
there, but like because I remember reading about it as a child.
I let their cover slip for a minute as a vampire.
Yeah, I'm several hundred years old.
That's like next level sun never sets on the British Empire.
The sun never rises too much on this part of it.
Yeah, and it was like a whole thing, and then they were like, no, they can't be named after people. It can only be like Norse, like, or not Norse, it can only be mythology creatures, except for Earth, which is the only planet that doesn't have a name after a, Greek or Roman god.
Yeah, I know it's sometimes associated with Gaia, but it's just like, yeah, this is planet Dirt, and our moon is called, and then our moon.
Yeah.
There's a moon called Moon, a planet called Dirt, a moon called Gerd. It goes on.
What more could you want?
Humans are great at naming things.
Yeah. What is great,
really
speaking
are.
of finding a planet using math, that's what's great is that people have figured out the math. So, like, they know where the eclipses are going to be for hundreds of years. Because they just, like, thousands, millions, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've done the math that far, but they could if they wanted to. So, like, I asked right after this eclipse, I was like, where are all the next eclipses? Typing them into the computer and like found where they're close to me. I'm like, maybe.
Where are your tour dates?
Exactly. So I'm like, where can we go? And like, they know exactly where the totality is going to be, how long totality is going to last. Like, it's just all math. And I'm like, I don't know necessarily how you figured this all out, but I get to benefit from it. So thank you, astronomers, and also thank you, the solar system, for being predictable in such a way.
True.
Okay, I was shocked by the answer, but I'm just going to see what your guesses are.
Doctors hate him.
When do you think the first time an eclipse was successfully predicted was?
Oh, success. It was either way far in the past or like 1965 is one of those two things.
Yeah. It was predicted.
I'm going to say 1000 BC, because if someone predicted one before that, we're not going to have like writing about it, probably.
I want to say it was really far in the past, but I'm going to say like 1969.
My dad was 7 years old.
Because we went to the moon, like a lot of space stuff happened in 69.
That's when
the moon was invented, actually. The moon was invented in 1969 by NASA.
By Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, that's what they don't tell you.
NASA didn't fake the moon landing. They really landed on it. What they don't tell you is that NASA faked the moon.
They faked the moon.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was 585 BC.
Really?
Nice.
When they first Thales, I think would be how you pronounced it, who was able to predict it.
Where was he from?
The method of prediction remains uncertain, though some suggest he recognized patterns in eclipse occurrences.
Well, yeah, that's how you would predict anything. I mean,
it's like, and you're like, that seems impossible. But also, like, they measured the circumference of the Earth in ancient times based on shadows. So, like, you get bored enough back then. You don't got any TikTok or Subway Surfers or Family Guy. So, like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna stare at the cosmos and think, I don't know what's going on, but maybe I can math my way into getting some of this.
Where was he from?
Greece.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anyone hasn't been able to see an eclipse in totality, I highly recommend
I'm
it.
anyone.
It's anyone is here, Curtis in the room.
Well, until then, I think that's all for this episode.
We could keep talking about eclipses for as long as they're happening, which is forever. But we've got things to do and places to be.
And fake moons to build.
Yeah.
What was that one? Gerd.
Gerd.
Gerd. We gotta go visit the moon. Gerd.
Gird your loins. We're going to space.
Until then, you can support the show at patreon.com/wildgreenmemes. That's memes with an M. We'll send you cool stuff in the mail, and it keeps the lights on around here. Until next time, I'm Rhett.
I'm Curtis.
I'm Io.
And happy year of the raccoon. Blocking out the sun.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.